Yo, guys, did you hear that Miss Marvel's appearing at AdventureCon next year? Can't believe that's happening. Holy... Oh shit, we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to Fake Nerd's Watch of Miss Marvel, episodes 3 and 4. I am Ben Magnet, and I am here with my bros, Brandon T. McClure.
That intro's on me. I told him just to go with what felt natural.
He did. He honestly did. Ryan Eliopoulos, a.k.a. DJ Tony Snark.
It's really nice that Miss Khan is able to become such an Avenger and such high status in only a year. Like, she's already going to AvengerCon. That's such rapid progression. It took how long? A decade to get to AvengersCon. She's already there. Happy for you, Kamala. Happy for you.
And of course, Sparkz Witty.
Yeah, I'm really excited that we all got to go on a cruise to see her engaging with her Avengers friends.
Oh yeah.
Can we real quickly just like that's insane. I didn't know she was part of that.
No, because like that was just announced. We talked about it like 2 weeks ago that like the second episode of the show came out and they were like, by the way, she's in this too. And we were all like, wow, this thing really sounds like it's cool.
Okay,
yeah, right?
Speaking of that, my buddy sent me a TikTok from the cruise, and Paul Rudd as Ant-Man acknowledges the whole...
Yes, we all saw this.
I think we've all seen
it. Okay, yeah. Good.
For those in the audience, he talks about going up Thanos' asshole.
Yeah, and he alludes to it.
First off, gross. Yeah, Ultron. Ross Marquand is such a good Ultron. I'm sad we'll never see him like big screen Ultron.
I honestly
never say never.
I will never say never at this point, especially with What If Ultron doing banana stuff. Like I'll never say never.
Anyway, we're here to talk about episodes 3 and 4 of Miss Marvel, which I had the titles and then
I have it. It's Destined and Seeing Red.
Great.
I love that movie.
How you guys feeling? 3 and 4 down.
Still good.
I think this is surprisingly the first maybe Loki, because I'm high on Loki. Yeah. This might be the first Marvel show where even though there are problems, I'm still really enjoying the ride. Whereas at this point in every other show we've discussed, we hit the point where it's like, uh-oh. And for me, I'm loving it. I'm still loving it. Like, there are problems with the villains, but honestly, everything else is so good. Everything else is so a 10 out of 10 that it doesn't really bother me. I think just because like the quality of the writing and like being in a new environment, being in Pakistan and stuff, like it does so much for me. Like maybe if this were just a show in New York City, I'd feel different. But just looking at the show, it looks unlike anything I've ever seen, especially for Disney. I'm loving the ride.
I mean, I'm enjoying the ride too. Although I must say, I think episode 4 is right now my least favorite episode of the show.
Sure.
I have some. It's weird. I was watching it once we got. I mean, we'll get into it later. But once we got to the end, I was really into it. But then, like stuff throughout the episode, I was kind of, I don't know how I feel about this. And what I am feeling isn't really that positive. I don't want to bring the show down. I'm not saying it sucks.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't the biggest fan of it, and I just didn't really enjoy it all that much. But as a whole, I'm still really, like, when I was done watching episode 3, I was like, okay, I have to watch episode 4 now. And I was like, sweet, episode 4. And then things were happening, which we'll get into.
I feel like any other show, episode 4 would be that show's, at least like what the recent track record of what we talked about, it would be its episode 5, where I'd be really nervous because I'm like, we do not have time for the things that we're doing right here, which is like what we always feel. But this was episode 4. So I'm like, cool. I feel like we still have plenty of time. Yeah. And we're doing fine. I will say, I feel there are some missteps in episode 4. Specifically in writing. We'll get into it. I did a rewatch of this one because I wanted to see if like maybe I just wasn't in the right space for some reason the first time I watched it or something. And that wasn't true. Like there's just something there, and we'll get into that. But I want to start with episode 3, which comes in hot with the flashback. Flashback story being told by Najma of the clandestines to Kamala.
1942 partition, baby.
Yeah. This one has a lot of Marvel Easter eggs. I think we're all in agreement that blue hand is a Kree hand.
Yeah, like it's, and even if the whole thing about Miss Marvel is like, are they going to do Inhuman stuff? At this point, they're not doing Inhuman stuff, but they are absolutely doing cosmic, whether it's Kree experimentation, Whether it's like they're with like the Jinn. There's a great line. I think it's in episode 4. If Thor landed in the Himalayas, he'd be considered a Jinn. And I think that's really, I think that's a really smart thing to say because like aliens can be whatever they want to whoever they want.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting way to keep her Kree origins, but not keep her in human origins.
Yeah.
And then the other thing in that same flashback is that somehow this Kree deceased hand is in a temple built by the Ten Rings.
And that is something that I did speculate, and a bunch of people on the internet speculated about, but I wasn't sure how it makes sense. And I think people are leaning towards it. This was just a Ten Rings temple that housed a bunch of weapons, like where Wenwu might have found the Ten Rings here. Might have been like a temple with many items, kind of like Odin's treasure vault. But we don't have enough information really to say that.
It could just be something that he created after he found the Ten Rings.
Yeah,
because we know where he found the Ten Rings roughly, and it wasn't in India.
Yeah, I think I'd sit in relatively the same space as Ryan, where I'm like, I think this is meant to just really be a nod of like the interdimensionality that Shang-Chi was using, and not so much as like these things are the same.
Yeah. People are going like, oh, so Shang-Chi is directly involved in this. I'm like, well, don't get too crazy.
Yeah.
Don't get too crazy.
Yeah, I think that there was someone who approached me thinking that because the design of the bangle is similar to the design of the Ten Rings, primarily because they had the same production designer. But like they were speculating that perhaps they came from the same source. I'm still operating under the assumption that the Ten Rings came from Fin Fang Foom still. Yeah. I don't think that they're Kree, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did decide to just go that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting thing because like what we're given is that, and I wondered if they were lying in episode 3. I think episode 4 has now made it clear that they weren't. But I wondered when they were telling Kamala, I'm like, how much of this is a lie? How much of this is true? Especially as the episode goes and we find out how nefarious they can be. But you get to episode 4 and like you see the dimension map that he
the
shows.
Black Panther, the Black Panther sand stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so like it's a dimension bridge to Earth, just like Shang-Chi's, but it's a different one. And that made me go. So I don't know if it's Kree. I guess it could be Kree from another dimension. There are humans in other dimensions. There could be Kree in other dimensions.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what I was kind of going with also. Like the idea, so like it's kind of bouncing around, but like in episode 4, in episode 3, they say that they're from the Nord dimension, right? That's what it's called.
That's what they call it.
The Nord dimension. And so like the clandestines came from this dimension and their power is unlocked.
They got banished.
And they're banished. And so their power. So they were like, okay, well, let's find something from this dimension. This is what I assumed. Let's find something in this dimension, and they find a Kree bangle or a Kree. What do the Kree call them?
Unibands, mega bands.
They find one of those, and that was meant to unlock their power in this dimension. So it's like it's kind of a weird way to connect 2 dots in 2 different origin stories.
Yeah.
That's how I assumed it was.
Yeah, sure.
And it's slightly clunky, but I think it works if you don't really lean too much into it.
No, I'm with you, Brandon. It's like they needed something from our universe, from the Earth universe 616 to get to their universe. So like whatever this Kree device is was the thing that allows to break the barrier. Yeah. But for some reason, if the barrier is broken, all of them are evil. Is the impression that they're giving in episode 4 that like it's gonna take over the world or whatever.
Well,
I don't.
It seems like it's not so much that they're evil, it's that either they don't understand or don't care that if the bangles are used to do it, then the potential for it to not just like let them go home, but instead blow up the way that Bruno suggests and allow the dimension to overtake the main one. So it's an incursion.
It's an incursion.
Yeah, so it'll just wipe over, and that's. Whether that's their intention or not, that's what's at risk.
Yeah. Like Zod and Man of Steel, like terraforming the planet, basically.
Yeah.
This is a big year for the name Bruno.
It is.
We're talking about him plenty. It's crazy.
Yeah, cool flashback stuff.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I'm excited to get more Aisha. She seems cool. I do lament, and it is the one real problem I have with the show is the clandestine. Which, by the way, I am a Marvel mega fan. Clandestine was even new to me. That's some Alan Davis 90s obscure shit. And I've read Clandestine who showed up in other comics, but I didn't know their origin. Like they've shown up randomly here or there as different characters. But like the Clandestine are this guy named Adam falls in love with a djinn who is an alien. And they have a bunch of babies, and then they're the clandestine, and they're vigilante superheroes. They're not villains. So they're taking kind of like what they did with the Moon Knight villain and just reincorporating a small obscure thing into its own thing, which is cool. That's fine. They're definitely not doing Inhuman stuff, which I totally get. But it's weird to use clandestine because I guess the djinn's there, so they can do it. Whatever. That's cool.
I did a little digging into it because like I know I'm not as informed in Marvel history.
I read the comics. I read the clandestine comics, so I know the shit now.
And so like I just kind of was looking at it and I was like, oh, so they've just changed this to match the show. I mean, like they've done, like it's not a big surprise because they've changed pretty much everything for the show. Everything except for Kamala's character, which I think is still intact. I do want to say that I think Iman Vellani is fantastic. And I know I said it in the first episode, but I want to reiterate it. I think she is as perfect for Kamala as Robert Downey Jr. was to Tony Stark, as Christopher Reeves is to Superman. Like I think this is another instance where like this person was born for this role.
Yeah, I was literally thinking that the other week. I was like, everyone, like there are so many characters who I think like Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange he's incredible. I could see other people playing Doctor Strange. Right?
Yes, me too.
Robert Downey Jr. Is Iron Man, and definitely Iman Vellani is Miss Marvel. Like she is just being such a youthful spirit. She just has so much energy, and like she's so believable. The thing that I love so much about the show is just like even when the writing isn't top tier, everything feels so believable. All the acting is so real. The family dynamic, it is so good. It's probably like the best any of these Marvel shows I've ever had, like in terms of just like community and character. I adore it. Anytime the family's on screen, I forget it's a superhero show half the time. And I'm just like, I just want to watch these people live in America. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ben, did you want to say anything else before you fall asleep?
No, I'm not falling asleep. No, I don't have anything to say.
So in this episode, the wedding. It's the wedding episode. That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't rewatch this one.
No, it's fine. I think this is one of the better episodes.
I do too.
Even I'm glad. Like, I don't think there was any part of me that believed that like they weren't going to be bad when we meet the clandestines at the beginning of the episode and they explain things to Kamala. I'm like, this is probably like they could have dragged that out. I'm glad it's before the episode's done. We're already like mask off, going for it. Didn't waste time with it.
Yeah. Because you get the scene where Kamran sees that she has his phone, and he's like, "Don't do this."
Yeah, I don't even mind them being impatient. There's no point where someone states like, "Oh, this needs to be done on a timetable," kind of thing. So the fact that Kamala's like, "Yo, let me get through the wedding," and like they don't even like, "Okay, well, we'll give her one day and then we'll come after the bangle," or like we'll try and talk to her and like see if she'll do it then. Like they just come so hot and heavy for it, and there's no like it was necessary to do this right now. Like Kamala had not said no, I'm not gonna do it. She just said, just give me a moment, you know. I wish that something had presented the reason to push those stakes that far. But I also don't mind that they're just like, yo, no, we're not waiting, like we're just doing this.
You know, I do agree. I do have a problem with it, but again, like it's not super like important to me or anything. Like I forgive it because again, I think everything is so good. But it is you're right. It is very mask off. Like, hey, just give me. Let me go to my brother's wedding. Like, no, we're gonna come kill everyone. It's very quick. It's very quick.
It's specifically like the engagement between Najma and her son Kamran, and where she sees the text and she's like, you didn't tell me that she was going to hold off. And he's like, well, she's going to focus on the wedding. And it's like, no, we're not waiting. And I'm like, I mean, like, I think it's fine. I just wish there had been more in the dialogue of a pushback between Kamran and her of like why she won't wait. I don't mind them being impatient. I was just like, damn, this is a lot real quick, but whatever.
There are some, go ahead, Ben.
when we first meet the clandestines, I thought, okay, they're probably going to reveal that they're going to be the villains of the show by like maybe episode 4, halfway through episode 5 at the very latest. And then that's where we get our final conflict from. Like, Kamala's going to help them. And then she realizes, oh, you're trying to take over the world, yada, yada, yada. But when, like, we meet the clandestines, and I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt when they turn evil. And she straight up says, no, we're not waiting. I was kind of like, Sparkz was like, damn, that was quick. I don't hate it. But also, it's like, just let her enjoy the wedding. I mean, the weddings are a big deal. You got to... And looking at this wedding, it's like, yo, this is a party. You got to let her... enjoy this.
I appreciated how quick it was.
I know Sparkz said that as well, but I like that it was just like the same episode that we're introduced to them. They're also the bad guys.
Yep.
I do think, however, that makes a lot of them faceless bad guys.
That's my problem. I don't know who any of them are, so it's hard for me to care about when they get hurt or when they're like they're all the only person I care about is what's her name again? I'm sorry. The main Najma. Like, she has the most development, but even then it's very quick. So when she's fighting the other dudes, I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever.
That's just par for the course to me. I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's a thing, but like, I'm like, it is what it is.
No, again, like, the show is so good, it's not bothering me as much as other shows. I wish it was higher because everything else is higher.
Sure. I do like that after they tell the clandestines tell Kamala her origin story, where she came from, what her lineage is, that she goes immediately tells Bruno. And Bruno is like, okay, this was a lot. And she's like freaking out. I was like, the stuff of my nightmares I am. And I thought that was good. There's also an Eric Selvig reference in this.
Yes.
He's the guy.
I appreciate that.
He's the multiverse big explosion in the sky man, right?
I mean, but like it makes sense. This was within the realm of the thing that he would be still studying post Thor. Yeah. So I'm like, A+. You knew where to do your name drop.
Yeah.
I want to touch on it's tangential in a sense. I think it's worth mentioning people who are far more. This matters more to them than it does to us. Not so happy about Jin. Connection for Kamala.
It's fair.
And I do think like that's understandable, like especially when you are getting this representation and then they're also tying it to essentially people who commit sin and people who are considered demons in your own belief system as attached to your hero representation. That's not the best.
Yeah.
In ways I get that they've already been responding to this, the writers and producers. I can't speak to that. It's not my belief system, but I do think it's worth mentioning. And I do think that it does bring up a fact of like, I am enjoying the show a lot. I think that they have made Kamala's origins, because of how much we're changing it from the comics, sometimes needlessly convoluted.
Oh yeah.
It's become kind of a tangled mess when it used to be she gets big, she gets small.
Yeah.
And she was touched by a mist, and that's the like. Honestly, there's other ways we could have. I like wanting to make it tied to her family history. I think there's that, but like, it has become like more and more just full of kind of bull that you have to talk your way through and bogs down her own story. Episode 4 suffers from this more than episode 3, I think. Yeah. But it does just like, I feel it just putting more and more pressure on what realistically is a pretty simplistic origin story.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
It's a double-edged sword, because I agree. Like, you can't do the Inhuman stuff, even though I just wish they do. Like, let's reincorporate everything.
You don't even need to do it as an Inhuman.
Right.
Like, if you want to keep the bangle thing, okay, she gets a bangle, she gets big, she gets small.
Yeah. But then if she loses the bangle, then the power's supposed to be within her. That's the kind of.
I mean, like, but like activating something in her, I like, again, love the tie to her family history. It just feels like, and now we're bringing up like the dimension stuff. I wonder if maybe just the bad guys shouldn't have been connected to it too.
Yeah,
like Kamala can be learning something about herself and her family history without it also being the stakes of the show, so that there's so much we have to explain, because we're explaining the villains too in doing that, and the villains could just be something else. Maybe
And honestly,
maybe not a bird-headed clone of Edison, but something.
I was about to say, like, honestly, maybe we could have done that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because again, like we see that blue arm, which may or may not be Kree, but like I think it's a Kree. And like
Sure,
there's not many blue things unless you want to call it a Jinn, but then like a Kree could have been a Jinn and all that stuff, right? Like it's a double-edged sword of them wanting to be more inclusive, more like representational with the character, but in doing so, it invites doing it wrong, right? Like it's doing something more difficult invites the criticisms that like if you don't do it right, then you're gonna make people mad. So it's like, do you make it easy? Do you challenge yourself? Like I prefer them challenge themselves and maybe not get everything right, but they're trying. They're trying, and I think again, as just a white dude, like seeing Pakistan, seeing like a Pakistani wedding, I've never seen that on a television show before.
Yeah.
In a major, sorry, like in like a major, there's probably smaller shows, so but like in a mainstream $1 million Disney show, we would never get this if this was just like, you know, a regular character type of thing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I agree with that, Ryan. But I also agree with Sparkz, the idea of like, you know, we in just fundamentally deciding to change her origin story, they have made it rather complicated, whereas it was simple. And I think that the criticisms of it being a Jinn, I think are I think the show even kind of does away with it when they say it, like the line in episode 4, if Thor had landed in the Himalayas, he would have been called a Jinn too. Like he's not actually a Jinn. That's just what I wanted to use that to refer to a conversation I had with someone. I'm not going to name drop this person, but it's someone we know. And I was talking to him about like how someone felt that because after episode 3 that the Jinn that the idea of making her a Jinn was racist, and that's not my call to make. If they think that, that's perfectly fine. And in fact, I could even agree if I had a discussion with the person. But and they said, well, how is this racist if it's created by these people who are part of the part of the culture that's trying to represent? And I'm like, and I had to go to him. I was like, you know, that's not your call. That's not your call to say whether or not it is, just because the people behind the scenes are have the right representation credentials. Like if people find it racist, then if people of that culture find it racist, then you can't say to them it's not.
Yeah. And I've certainly seen that online of Muslim people, Pakistani people, Indian people saying like, yeah, some of the stuff in the show I don't like. I am, who am I to say that they're wrong? Right. I literally can't. I don't have the experience.
Sure.
So like you just have to take that. You just have to take that and accept it and be like, hey, you might not agree with it, but you can't say it's wrong. Because like literally white people cannot say shit. We're not allowed to. We can't.
Yeah. That's why I just wanted to make, you know, mention of it and also bridge it into the discussion of like where I think maybe to some extent it has gotten a little beyond their grasp. It's still a good show. Like I'm still enjoying it. I think that there was maybe a more simple way to go about this.
I want to bounce off that a bit more, Sparkz, if that's okay. It's the idea of like, I do think that Miss Marvel, the comics. Now, admittedly, I did not read past Secret Wars. I think there's like 12 issues before Secret Wars. But like, I don't remember her story being so related to her culture in the sense of going to Pakistan and going in that direction. I do remember it a lot about her being, trying to figure out her place as a brown superhero in New Jersey. And that's the kind of thing where I'm like, you know, I do think you've kind of written yourself into a corner. Now I do appreciate that the show decided to change her powers and then built the show rather than the other way around. And I think that they and that's where the strength of the show comes from. But I do think that, you know, what was so wrong with trying to keep it within its comic roots, even if you wanted to change the powers, like what I do understand the want to do something, to push something. Like Ryan said, you know, I always appreciate kind of the swing rather than the safe bet. But you know, once you kind of created this frankly overtly convoluted origin story for Kamala, why didn't you scale it back? You know?
Oh, and I brought it up, and sorry, and I missed the point I forgot to make. With that Kree arm, she could have just been part alien. And that would tie directly to Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, even more, because now she has honestly less. She's only has ties because she's a fan of her, right? Like Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel, like during that Inhuman event, like she was very tied. Captain Marvel was there. Captain Marvel's not even on the planet right now, so like the ties between her is just I like her. If you take away that Kree stuff, it's even less, right? Because the Inhuman stuff is Kree technology. Yeah. So like they absolutely could have simplified it while still making it cosmic, which they're doing. But they adding the Jinn, adding the bangle, adding the Nord dimension, it is overcomplicating it to a point where, especially in episode 4, I like what I'm seeing, but I'm like, now we're getting a little too much, much.
And we'll get into episode 4 in just a second to kind of respond to what Brandon was saying. To my knowledge, Brandon, just to share it, I'm pretty sure that later on in Ryan can check me on this. In Kamala's arc, she goes to Pakistan. Like the whole thing is that she does superheroing efforts there, but she does it kind of recklessly, like she belongs. And the Red Dagger Kamran tells her, "You don't know what you're doing here. You don't know how to be here, even though you're American, even though you are a descendant, you are American, and you don't know the situation and culture here."
I'm assuming you listen to the Ringer podcast on this one.
You got me,
my man. Yeah, no, she does go to Pakistan and like she helps. She basically does like a Star Wars Tatooine water crisis situation where like there's people like stealing water and she tries to help and she ends up like blowing up water supplies and she's like, and then the Red Dagger's like, I know you're a superhero, but you're not the same superhero in Pakistan. Like you are actively hurting your own people by trying to be a big Avenger. That's not what we do here. So I think that is really cool that we are getting that, and I love the inclusion of the Red Daggers. I think expanding them to be an actual organization is pretty cool.
We'll get there. I do want to focus on. No. I do want to focus on like I do think episode 3 is maybe one of the strongest. I think it's one of the strongest to me because it's like it's all the best gears of the show, I think, working together. Like I think this is some of the best of Kamala's dad that we get. I think this is some of the best of Kamala's mom that we get. Not just with her, but like with other characters as well, whether it's, talking with Bruno or talking with other members of the family. This is frankly like one of my favorite bits is this is practically in a way lifted out of the comic is her conversation with Sheikh Abdullah out on the porch when she has the mask and he tells her like the important thing is to do good.
Her famous like great responsibility line is good is not something you are, good is something you do.
Right.
That is her Peter Parker moment. Yeah.
And I thought that everything about that the way Sheikh Abdullah was present in this episode, both with his moment with Kamala, but also like earlier with Nakia, when damage control comes in and Nakia steps up and earns some amount of respect from the Sheikh for telling them to come back when they have a warrant.
Take your shoes off.
Yeah, he has that. Yeah. I love that line where he's like, "Next time, remove your shoes." Yeah.
Also, and he's respectful about it.
Yeah. When she walks into the mosque and you can tell that the camera has her shoes on the carpet, it's like, oh, you're not supposed. Okay, there's the disrespect.
She's the worst.
It's like, oh, look at all the disrespect in this room.
Sparkz. She reminds me. The damage control lady reminds me of Katie from College Humor. The woman who never laughs.
Yeah.
Big Katie energy.
She's got that. It's that. She truly feels like a character who is thrilled to arrest minorities.
Yeah,
that's what she feels like.
She does feel like that.
You brought up the. It reminded me of something, Ryan, when you called the line the Spider-Man moment, the great responsibility moment. And you reminded me of what I think the comic did so damn well when it first came out, which was create a Spider-Man story for the 21st century. Mm-hmm. It is the perfect encapsulation of what a 21st century Spider-Man story would be. She is essentially Peter Parker Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That is what we created. That is what they created over at Marvel with Miss Marvel.
Because if you think about it, like if you have a teenager living in New York City, like in the Bronx or somewhere where like in New Jersey, like chances are she's probably they're not going to be white.
Yeah.
Like that's the reality. And that's why like unfortunately Miles Morales did not. Kamala succeeded, I think, where Miles failed in that regard, unfortunately, at the beginning. I think Kamala's not that Miles' origin is bad or anything, but like Kamala's like she is really the next Peter Parker, where Miles unfortunately for a time kind of is like what was like a second Peter Parker, which was bad.
Yeah, well, because Miles is like forced to step into the in that world where Peter Parker had died, and he gets his inspiration from knowing who Peter Parker was and learning from the people that knew him.
Yeah,
and like that's yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and what I think really worked, what I think really works when they adapt the show, is that the MCU has not done the Peter Parker origin story. They skipped it, and I think rightfully so. We've seen it already. But like they've never done, we have not had a Peter Parker origin story in the MCU, and now we do. And I think what's so good about the show is that were able to take what worked about that comic book, that Peter Parker-esque, the Spider-Man-ness of the comic. They have taken that and put that in the show, and I think that's where the show succeeds really well. Which is kind of where I go back to, like, I do kind of wish we were still dealing with her being, and we'll probably get back there, I'm sure, by episode 5 or 6. But like, I do wish that we had kept doing the story of just she's just trying to find her way in Jersey, trying to find this way as a superhero, as a brown superhero in New Jersey.
Sure. Yeah, the scale unfortunately is getting huge and like world ending, and I just don't think Miss Marvel's first story needs to be world ending. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's a good point. Like that is where I think in episode 4 they kind of lost me on the
I think so too.
On the threat of the villains.
Yeah.
We'll again get there.
Let's talk about the wedding. The most fun wedding I've ever seen in my life.
Ben, episode 3. What do you like?
Obviously the whole wedding scene was great.
Yeah.
And also I do like the part with the Sheik, and I want to talk about Nakia real quick, because I love how when Nakia, when she completely just schools the damage control agent. I feel like Nakia is like my favorite character in the other plot thread, like the C plot thread that I really care about.
Yeah. Because
we got A plot thread, Kamala being a superhero, B plot thread, Bruno trying to obviously confess his feelings for Kamala, even though he doesn't have he's like super scared about it, and he's finally tells her that he's going to Caltech this episode after she tells him she's a djinn. And
that reminded me of the line, "Are you sitting down?" Yes.
And then, of course, we got Nakia. And when it's revealed that
I don't want you to just breeze past that point. I think they did really. This is where the show has like smart writing, right? Where Bruno tells Kamala that he's going to Caltech. He tells her to put the focus back on him and like his relationship with her, and like what he's like. She's going through something else, and he should have told her, but that was not the right moment, and you could feel it in the way that it was presented.
He's doing that like that selfish kind of like woe is me, like I want the girl to like me, so I'm gonna say I'm leaving forever to make her like feel bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we get Nakia.
Yeah.
And I freaking love her.
Squishy.
The way Nakia. Oh, by the way, the dialogue that they've written between Kamala and Nakia specifically, and I know it's everywhere, is so natural. You reminded me when she calls Nakia squishy. Yeah, that felt so natural and so friendly and so like, yeah, I've known you my whole life. I've got weird nicknames for you that I have weird pet names for you that I would say. Nakia has the moment at the end where she finds out that Kamala is Nightlight. And what a dumb lane.
The sequence where they're in Kamala's bedroom and she's telling her, like, I really like I wrote down a note about it. I really like the way that the whole dynamic of their interaction as she's telling Kamala about winning and how Kamala's not listening and everything. I do find her upset at Nightlight for damage control a tiny bit forced. Into like, we got to make Nakia upset that at the superhero that Kamala is becoming, and I was like, did we? Or can we just be upset at damage control?
I agree. See, I agree. And then the next episode, she immediately apologizes on the phone. So for me being a teen, like she's 16, 17. She's a teenager, high emotions. Like I totally get like in the moment she was mad, but immediately recognized. And then she has like all of those texts that Kamala's ignoring. Like, I'm so sorry. And that was literally like the next day. So like, it's not like this is going to be a plot point that's going to continue for the sake of drama. I think it makes sense for the one moment.
That's Kamala texting Nakia.
Oh,
saying,
was it?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Nakia's not answering her. They're doing the thing I don't want them to do.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was the opposite.
That's why she falls asleep after she's looking at the text messages and she hears Nakia, which isn't something that Nakia actually said, but she hears Nakia blaming her for not telling her.
Okay, I assumed it was the other way around. Okay, then no, I agree. I don't like that.
Yeah, they're doing the whole like Nakia's like, oh, you're a superhero. You didn't tell me. Oh, I'm hurt, and it's like she's still trying to figure out the superhero thing and. Yeah, secret identity for a thing.
I will agree. I will agree with you guys on that one. It does feel a little forced.
I was just like, come in and be mad at damage control. Don't be mad at the Muslim girl who has superpowers. Like,
it's like
that doesn't feel very Nokia to me. That felt like we're doing a plot thing.
You know, if the dialogue was maybe written better, or like, do you understand what you're doing to the mosque, what you're doing to our community? But she doesn't say anything like that. So like, yeah, I think if it was written better, I'd feel.
Well, because the last time that they saw each other is she had to leave because the clandestines were after her. Mm-hmm. So she's like, "Here's Bruno. I got to go. I'll explain everything later." And she doesn't get that moment. She doesn't get to be able to go to Nokia and say everything later because her grandmother calls like right after and says, "Hey, you need to come to Pakistan."
Hey, you need to come to Pakistan.
Did you see the train? I saw it too.
I love how it plays with on the older generation with the phones and like being like, how do I do this? It's all up in their face and everything.
My mother, you guys might find this funny. My mother has whenever she does FaceTime because she needs me to help her with her television. She does FaceTime, and so like she does it so like like her like. She's got like the forehead up, like it's just on her forehead, and so like whenever I say, "Hi, is this forehead a security?" She never gets it, but I know that you guys might.
That's funny. I like that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, right. Anyway,
the whole wedding scene is absolutely gorgeous.
Very fun. I really love the brothers bit at the end when the fire alarm goes off. We need to save the money.
No, yeah, I did the same.
Also, I will not lie. There's a scene with Amir and his dad right before the wedding, and he says how much money he has in his bank account. Mm-hmm. That scene hit me hard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because this poor guy he's getting married, but he also is going to grad school, and he is flat broke. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wish my bank account would steadily have the amount of money that he currently has in his bank account, but at the same time, I definitely feel where his stress is coming from.
Mm-hmm. I get his stress. His stress feels really real. I'm really glad he has that scene with his dad where he's like, should I even be doing this because I'm not financially in a position where this makes sense.
And it ties back to what the entire show's about. It's about community. It's about family. Yeah. And the clandestine are like, they feel betrayed by Aisha, her family, so they're getting revenge, right? And like on the opposite side, like Kamala and her family, they're all about community. They're all about, hey, I know you're stressed right now, but we're here for you. Your community's here for you. Have the best day of your life, and we'll worry about this later. The money's not important. Money's not important.
And then with weddings, they give a bunch of money, and he's like, get the money. I do find that funny. I don't find it that it's cheap. I'm actually really glad that they did put that scene in where he's freaking out about his finances for grad school and for the wedding and everything. And then, of course, when Kamala pulls the alarm, it doesn't make him seem like a cheapskate. Like all he cares about is money. He's like, he definitely needs that. So definitely, bro, go get it.
Yeah, and there's a great scene where like he's like, oh, they're getting me up to dance. Haha, I'm in the dance, and I'm like, oh, that's great.
Yeah, that scene's really fun. It definitely seems like
it's a good dance scene. Oh, did we ever talk about? This was in episode 2, but I forgot. Did we ever talk about Kamal Nanjiani's name drop in
Kingo? Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah.
Junior, Kingo Senior, and everything. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that guy. Oh man, I totally forgot.
Yeah, it's fun. The joke is that they're talking about the same person. Oh, he still likes Kingo Senior. Oh, gross.
Yeah.
There's some very apparent ADR happening in the wedding scene with Kamran, where his back is turned. They're gonna kill everyone, Kamala. It's like very apparent that like there's some ADR done, which is fine.
I really like everything about the wedding before we get into the ballroom brawl. Mm-hmm. I think that they did such a good job of like showing the respect of the cultures and friends blending. Like you got the parents of Aisha's family up front, and they are like they're in more standard attire, nice formal wedding attire that's not of the Pakistani culture, but they still have their shoes off. They're still like fully supportive, and like you can see her side that's all also the same at the mosque, but like it's just nice to see that kind of integration. I thought that was done really tastefully. I really like that in their version they do the I do 3 times. I think that's really, really cool.
They say, and it's something that I've never seen in a show that's not about terrorism. They say Allahu Akbar in celebration. And that is I think like that is a really big deal for, again, not like for mainstream Disney to have that in there, because 99% of the time when you hear Allahu Akbar is when something bad is happening. And that's not always what it means. And I think that's really important. I think that's really cool to be like, this is an entire culture full of regular people and they're celebrating like however they want to celebrate. I just thought it was really beautiful. Like I really, again, as a white dude, getting to see how people celebrate their lives, just regular, not like make a big deal out of it. This is just what people do. It's really important and it's really cool. And I love watching that.
Oh no, you're not the only one who actually really enjoyed that part. I did too, because if I remember correctly, translated, it's essentially saying God is great, or something along those lines. I might be paraphrasing, but you're absolutely right. In media, since that fateful day in September, when we hear that, it's normally something right before something bad's gonna happen, and to see it's like in a form of celebration, in a form of like, hey, this is good, this is a great thing that's happening. It's like, I actually had a big sigh of relief. It's like, what a beautiful change of pace.
It reminds people that, a culture isn't defined by their worst.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what it really is doing.
Exactly.
And that's really great.
Exactly. And the whole Bollywood dance scene was great.
Yes.
I
really like the scene before with Kamala and her mom, where she says how she was feeling lost until she found her faith and then her family.
Oh, bro, that made me cry. Oh my God, that's so good.
I think the parents are being done so well. I think Yusuf is also really good, but Muniba's getting a lot of good play. It's very much, it's one of the reasons, again, like episode 3, I think is very strong because it's playing to all of its strengths of its friends and family characters around Kamala. And I don't feel like the clandestine stuff bogs it down in episode 3, really. And then when we get into the action scene, I think all the action stuff is done really well too.
Brown Jovi.
Jovi.
Give me a break. I definitely thought we were gonna get like a Pakistani cover of a Bon Jovi song instead of it just playing. I would have liked that, but like I also would like just like Bon Jovi too. It's fine.
Well, because we did for a second, because like when it's starting the slow dance, that's what they're doing. And it just plays "Living on a Prayer" by Bon Jovi for the action. Yeah.
But I am glad that they brought back the Bon Jovi reference from episode 2.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, if it wasn't for Slippery When Wet, your dad and I may have never met.
King of New Jersey.
Gross. Well, yeah, so Bon Jovi's the king of New Jersey, and Bruce Springsteen is the boss
of New Jersey. Yeah. They're BFFs. Not really. I think the action, for the most part, again, besides not caring about like the side villains very much, I think the action is pretty good for the most part.
I do too. I think that they use the kitchen stuff very well. The lighting of it, the framing of it is all very good. I really like that Najma does that trick where she just makes a loud sound to make Kamala trigger her powers so they can see where she is. I thought that was really smart. Just a lot of good choices there. When Kamala comes in and she's like, everybody needs to get out. And then like one of the dudes walks in and decks someone. And then they're like, oh, absolutely.
Yeah. That's the best extra in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right there. She gets
I do really appreciate how they show Kamala, everything that Kamala does, every action scene that she's in, she is learning something new about her powers. She is learning something new of what she can do. And I think that's all really done. And I think that's done well. And even in the next episode, she gets an action scene where she does the same thing.
I will say that it's both a knock and a plus when I say this. I need them to not have Kamala keep doing the 3D step platforming move and then someone destroys one of them from under her and makes her fall.
It does happen a lot.
I think we've done this every single episode since episode 2.
Yeah.
Here's my counter to that. In episode 4, she catches herself when someone does it. So it's like she's learning. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I still think we're relying on this particular tactic too much.
Yeah. Should we go into episode 4?
Not yet. Damage control just like comes in and rounds them up, and I guess they just happen to not see Kamala when they got in. So Kamala's able to sneak aside with Bruno.
Yeah.
And they're just like, arrest all these people. They're probably enhanced.
And they have
we don't need these people
some of them anymore. They know they are. Some of them, okay.
They got super energy guns that could take out superheroes.
The clandestine have weapons in their like clothing that they like take and like create like giant spears. I think that's cool.
It does I think call into question like not that I need the show to explain it, but just like out of interesting curiosity, like what is damage control's like amount of authority? Because I would assume it's specifically with enhanced individuals, but they arrest Kamran. Kamran's not enhanced, and to their knowledge, they have no reason to think like he was there. But they arrest him. But like the fact that they get to take him to their big prison, like they should have to prove that he's enhanced.
Well, no, because in Spider-Man they interrogate Ned and MJ too, so I think it's just anyone who's associated.
No, for sure. I'm saying for the next episode he goes to their prison.
Yeah,
and I'm saying I don't know if that should be allowed if he's not in it. That should be a prison for the enhanced individuals, which I would assume is not.
You bring up something interesting that as far interesting insight into the MCU.
Sure.
Just a quick little tangent. If we know about the Raft, we've seen the Raft. As far as we know, the Raft is probably still around.
Yeah.
And Damage Control has their own Supermax prison, and I thought that was interesting because like Damage Control started as just an organization set up by Tony Stark to clean up the mess, and now they operate as basically a multi-purpose police.
They're ICE.
They're ICE.
Yeah.
And they have been that way since No Way Home. So somebing during the blip, somebody during the blip took over Damage Control and really changed it.
It's the Skrulls.
And they made their prisons into Weenie Hut Juniors as far as security.
Yeah. Oh my God, that we'll talk. Yeah.
If it was the Skrulls, like if that's what the plot of Secret Invasion, I'm so down for that because I really like what we're seeing of Damage Control. This kind of having seen where it started and where it is now is very fascinating to me in the background of the MCU.
Yeah, my theory is that like the new Damage Control is trying to scoop up superpowered people so they can make Skrulls out of them, basically, for the Secret Invasion. And I think that is lining up very nicely. I think that'd be cool. And if not, they can just be a racist organization, just like the CIA, FBI are, or whatever.
Paramilitary. That's what they're called. They're a paramilitary group.
Yeah, I do think some of what you're saying, Sparkz, like I think it might be also like because they are shitty racist people, they'll just arrest him because he's brown.
Yep. Sure. Like I said, I didn't need to explain. I'm just I pontificate on what is their authority in the terms of like how can they just put someone in a prison? Do they have to prove they're enhanced? Because I would assume that is Damage Control's purview.
Yeah.
Remember when ABC was trying to make a Damage Control?
Oh yeah, back in the day, and it didn't happen.
Oh yeah.
I still want it.
And I think it's interesting that the way the bangle activates to show the train at the end of episode 3.
Yeah.
It's when Najma says, "Why would I protect the people who betray me?" And the bangle activates from that before she grabs it.
Doesn't she get stabbed?
No. That's episode 4.
Oh, sorry.
Episode 3, Najma says that, and the bangle starts to glow.
Yeah.
Then Kamal is raising her arm, and Najma grabs it. The reason I thought this was interesting is because I feel like it implies one of two things: either Aisha speaking through the bangle to say like that's not accurate. Kamala didn't betray you, or it's Aisha knowing that Najma thinks Aisha betrayed her. I just thought it was interesting the way that it activated. It was like on Najma's words cue that made them both see the vision of the train.
Yeah,
and I wonder what that will mean.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works because again, in episode 4, the bangle is also activated randomly through like a stab in a weapon, but it might be because it's an alien weapon. Like don't have enough information.
I think there's something that we have to learn about Najma's perspective on Aisha or something.
Yeah.
There's still more we need to learn about Aisha.
For sure. But I just thought that was interesting that her words betray me. Triggered the bangle to glow.
Yeah, you're right.
And then because that allows her to see the vision of the train also when she grabs it, which is the first time we've seen her seeing it from that side. We've been told that she knew Kamala was seeing the visions, and we've seen her reach out to Kamala.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then I had one other note. Oh, I just want Kamala to tell her parents when they get to the end, and her parents are like, "Just tell us what's going on," and I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, do it. Damn it.
That's in the comics. I believe. Oh, they probably know now because of.
No, they know. They know now.
But like for a long time, because again, going back to the Peter Parker thing, like, you know, it's the secret identities that don't really exist in the MCU. I would assume that Kamala would be like one of 3 people in the MCU who still have a secret identity.
To be honest with you, with how much I've read of the comics, which I'll admit is not all, but like a decent chunk, especially of the origin of Kamala's parents' relationship, her parents are far more supportive here of her. Mm-hmm. This is one of the things where we talked about like early on in this show that like what they did so well is that like, you know, when Kamala was out, the next day wasn't like full of punishment. They still let her go to a party. They were just like, just come home at a reasonable hour through the front door, please. Like they're far more reasonable with Kamala than they're presented in the comics. I think this is an improvement that the show has made. And to be honest, like the version of them that I see in the show, I'm like, yeah, I'd tell them at this point.
Mm-hmm,
sure. It has to do with your family history. I would bring them in on what's going on.
I mean, if people come and show up to your brother's wedding to come and kill you and steal your bangle and you have superpowers, this would have been the perfect time to be like, hey, you all need to sit down. I got some stuff to show you and I got some stuff to tell you. It's pretty fantastical, but this is what's happening.
Yeah, it's also for their own protection at this point.
Yeah, that would be.
I can see Ben, just push back a little bit. I can see the story as Kamala as a character. There's nothing in the story that makes it feel like she would say at that moment, hey, you know, hey, did you pull the fire alarm? What's going on with you? Blah blah blah. That she would sit down and go, hey, by the way, I'm a superhero. Because there's nothing that they have said that, because she still looks at them as they still look at her as a kind of an irresponsible teenager, and she thinks she's got this thing as a teenager would. I'm doing this thing. I'm working through this on my own. I have to do this on my own because you don't want to get help. Now I agree with Sparkz that by the end of the show, probably should tell them. But at that moment in episode 3, I don't think that's the moment that would make sense for Kamala's character to do so, because again, she's a teenager. When has a teenager ever told their parents what's actually going on with them? Right?
Yeah.
I will use this as we are different people. I will use
Sparkz,
this as
you had a much better childhood than everyone else.
It's Sparkz, true. To be fair, her relationship with her parents is far closer to our relationship with our parents than it is with your relationship with your parents.
Sure. I will use that as a bridge to say that in episode 4, I think it's doing a disservice to Muniba for her.
Wake up, Ben.
I think it does a disservice to Muniba that she doesn't know why they're there, that she doesn't know about the bangle, that she doesn't know what Kamala. I think that I was kind of bummed with episode 4 that Muniba and Nani get kind of sidelined ultimately.
Sure.
I thought that was going to be some of the value of going to that. I wanted that family element for Kamala to continue, but we get really wrapped up in the Red Dagger stuff. Mm-hmm. That they're just left to the side. Like it bums me out that excuse me, that Nani does the thing where she's like, come to Karachi, we need to figure this out. And then Kamala gets there and she's like, I don't know, go check out the town. You'll find something, I guess.
Keep talking, I'll be right back.
Go ahead. Go with your asshole cousins.
Yeah. Just the worst cousins.
Just the worst. I will agree with that. I do appreciate how this show is kind of continuing a trend that we've been seeing in a lot of media. Everything everywhere all at once, turning red. Like this idea of generational trauma and how that affects people. How it affects your parents and your relationship to your parents and their parents and all that. And I do appreciate that this is just another thing that we're seeing do that. Mm-hmm. But I did find it very strange, as much as I did enjoy seeing the mother and the grandmother have that kind of talk, have that kind of like their banter relationship, have their moments. It was weird that once we got to Pakistan, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, I guess just go off and figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was a big problem for me.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I do like the Red Dagger stuff, but I will admit it is kind of thrusted into the plot. It doesn't feel as natural because this is again another secret organization that Kamala leans into, and she meets a hot dude, and then like bad stuff happens. Like it's kind of like a repeat.
Yes.
But I don't think any of it's necessarily bad. I just think it's like, again, we're overcomplicating it. I love that we're in Pakistan, but like again, like it kind of suffers a little bit.
I think what they've done for Pakistan is very similar to what they did for Egypt and Moon Knight. Really show it as a developed nation, a developed world.
I think even I don't know exactly what the way I would have wanted this to be, but I wanted Nani to be more involved in it. Like I whether she's aware of the red daggers so she can at least point Kamala in the right direction or something. Like the fact that Kamala gets there and she's basically like, nah, I just knew you need to be here, and now it's your thing, Kamala. Like go. It felt like a misstep in the sense of like this show doing such a good job of like that family and friends dynamic we talked about with the previous episode is so strong, and then you get to this episode and we've dropped so many of those characters out of this episode, so we're not getting to engage with them, but we still have Muniba, and now we have Nani, and we have the dynamic that has been hinted at in every episode previously about how Muniba feels about her, and it feels like Kamala should be in that, but Kamala's just totally removed from it. What's going on at home between the two. She's not learning from it. She's not engaging with it. And that feels like a misstep because I think we do get too sucked into the world of Kamran and the Red Daggers. There's an amount of like, Kamala should learn some of these things. I think even Kamran as a character is a good introduction, but maybe not the Red Daggers as a whole society.
Isn't Kamran the name of the kid that she...
Oh, you're right. Sorry, Kareem. I mean Kareem. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry for being nitpicky. Was like,
no, you're right. I was saying the wrong person. It's Kareem. Kareem, who's played by Aramis Knight, who I love because he comes from Into the Badlands, which is why he's good at martial arts stuff. It's unfortunate that he also comes in with some of the most bad forced writing that they're forced to deliver, both him and Kamala in the scene where they meet and a couple of the scenes after. I mean, the bit where Kareem goes, come with me if you want to live. Just kidding. I've always wanted to say that, but really we should go. I was like, just go. Just go somewhere. This is...
There's that MCU writing. There it is.
The writing suddenly, like, even as good as Iman is, like, there was some writing in that felt so forced and stiff and weird for him. This episode did not have it clicking with these characters the same way.
I am so happy you said that because that whole line, like the whole fight scene between them in the middle of the train station, there was like a shot of, I want to say it's a close-up of Kareem, but you could see people in the background just moving like 20 yards away. It's like, how come no one has noticed these two kids fighting in a restricted area?
And it's not like they're just like fist fighting. They're throwing daggers and making platforms.
Yeah, they're throwing daggers. One of them is making these interdimensional platforms, and once again, she's making a platform and she gets hit from below and it breaks and she falls. And it's like, man, they do that a lot.
I think there's a sense that the action in the series, well, I think is fine for the most part. There is a sense of that it feels very much like in episode 4, I felt the most, where it feels like something like it feels staged as guy does something, Kamala does something, guy does something, Kamala does something. It doesn't quite feel like a flowing or a choreographed fight sequence. And Kamala oftentimes is just kind of standing there waiting to make a platform or waiting to make a giant fist. And I think that was for me far worse in episode 4 than it had been prior. It's where I really noticed it, and I hope that we smooth that out a little bit.
I do think the chase scene in the Little Turks, I think that's pretty good. I thought that was fun.
It looks way better.
Those poor people who sell shit on the sides, like my cabbages, nothing but my cabbages this entire episode.
Kareem, they break off the bit of their little thing, and he's just riding on the one wheel with Kamala. I thought that was fun.
That was fun. Yeah. I don't remember his name, but like the leader of the Red Daggers, like Waleed, thank you. Like, I think that character is awesome, but like he's barely in it, and he immediately dies. And I'm like, oh, I would have liked more of him. But again, the next episode is like a different scenario.
He feels like he's a Bollywood star there for a plot dump.
Yeah.
Is what he feels like. He's there for a lore dump, and that's all the more reason why I'm like the more you took this away from Kamala coming here to learn about her family's history with it, to learn of it through connecting with her Nani or anything like that, the further and further you got away from that, the more it felt like the convolutedness, the plot mechanics just having to shove themselves down to explain this stuff, and again to make those big world-ending stakes that I didn't need in this show.
Yeah.
Who wants the green screen?
Emma's shot. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's And it's like they have a little like diagram of just in case they need to explain how the world will end with this other dimension that just pops up and goes down. I'm like, wow, that's very specific, incredibly specific piece of technology right there just for that one little scene. I'm like, okay, whatever, it's cool.
I mean, I like
what's this for? Just in case someone comes over and asks what's going on.
Yeah.
We need it.
I mean, I like how they sneak into the how their entrance into their secret little room is through the restaurant, the kitchen of a Chinese restaurant. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, sure.
You get this like rundown, beat up restaurant, and then you go inside, you push it, it's like really nice and pristine. Also, I have to say, like,
by the way, I don't want to pull past that. I really like the set design in that scene. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Like, I think the scene itself is kind of clunky, but that set design, that set is pretty.
No, I was actually just about to say there's something about like the architecture in that set piece, and also even in the mosque. Because I've seen pictures of mosques around the world, and the architecture and the geometry of it all is absolutely stunning. Mm-hmm. I love how when you walk in there, everything is all like uniformed, very geometric, and it all makes sense. It all fits into a grand place. And it's like, man, this place is nice.
Nice.
Yeah, I really like. I mean, I like it when the MCU builds a set rather than built a green screen. Exactly. But like, I think that like its walls, like its pillars are kind of almost like. I guess glass. They're kind of like this thin see-through glass that make this kind of like beautiful geometrically pleasing pillars.
Yeah.
I really like the set design in that area.
I think there's a way. Because like the red daggers aren't an immediate thing in the book. Like that's like a volume or two later. But like there's a way that you can incorporate the red daggers as protectors of Pakistan. But just again, the way that it's all the Noor stuff, the Noor dimension, and like why would these people who they don't give me enough reason why they would have all of this knowledge, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It's that for me, what stands out is the first 3 episodes are so full of characters who, like, the moment we meet them, the moment we're engaging with them, they feel like they're part of a fully fleshed out world. They are fully fleshed out people. They interact well. It's great to get to know all of them. We've talked at length about Nakia, Bruno, even Kamran. Mm-hmm. We engage with all of them. And then I like the actor playing Kareem. I like the character idea of Kareem, but he and Waleed come in and it's nowhere near the level of fleshed out or engaged. It feels like it's there to just shove some lore onto what's going on.
It becomes generic. It becomes generic.
And it's just a bummer because, like, it doesn't, some of the writing isn't doing good service. Like Kamala isn't as well written here as she has been in previous episodes. So Iman's performance even feels stiff and jilted because of it. And it feels like you lost some of the core of what was making the show work, which was Kamala's dynamic with her family, with her friends. And because we pushed her so far out of that dynamic, it's just floating away a little bit.
Yeah. And then
that's why I talked about when we talked about episode 3, though. It's just like, I don't understand why we didn't just make it about this girl finding her place as a superhero in New Jersey.
And then the clandestine, even though they went through like a secret passage, they just break right on through the roof.
Yeah. And they got there fast.
I did not.
Okay, we go into Pakistan.
Yeah. I did not need them to. Yeah, I did not need them to show. I like the action scene. Mm-hmm. I did not need them to crash in. I would have rather that this was something where we still stayed focused on, like, even if Kamala's learning about stuff from the Red Daggers, I want it to come back to Nani. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's supposed to be about her learning about her family's connection to all this, and she does, but not through her engaging family. With her family, which is why I'm like, I agree with Brandon. Like, it is about her finding her place as a brown superhero in New Jersey, but it's also because they've made this ancestral dynamic. I think that's fine to take her to Pakistan to learn about this, but she should be learning about it by engaging with Nani. And Nani has great moments, like the drawing the things. She's saying, like, anything we couldn't keep from partition, I've drawn. There's a lot of, like, that's the dynamic where I found myself when I'm watching the episode. Like, I want to be here. I want to be at the Muniba and Nani scenes. I want to be at the Nani and Kamala scenes. I want to be at the Muniba and Kamala scenes. Like, that's where I want to be. I want to live at this house and watch what they're doing.
And it's
the Red Dagger stuff just is like,
takes
but
away.
the world's in danger. And I'm
not just the Red Dagger stuff, but just all the stuff that's outside of Kamala and Kamala's family. I just felt like I did not care or was forced. Like, my least favorite scene, the one scene that just irks me to no end, is the beach scene where she's hanging out with Kareem and his friends.
Oh, why?
I don't know. To me, it serves absolutely no point. It's just there to be like, oh, here's another possible love interest for Kamala. She's a teenage girl. It's like, here they are, just on the beach, just chilling. And it's just, for me, it just serves absolutely no point to the story. It does not need to be there. Whereas every other scene, like, I'll give like, hey, here's the exposition dump of why the clandestines should be stopped, because if they breach the veil to their own dimension is going to destroy ours, and we're not going to be here anymore. Mm-hmm. And the stuff with,
I want to back you up on the beach scene, Ben, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
I'll back you up on that one by saying that, like, while I did find it charming, much like I find most of the show to be charming as hell, I also found that scene to be rather unnecessary, and I don't know if I needed it in the show.
I think I like the idea of what the scene is supposed to do, but it's not present enough in the episode to matter, which is like this idea of like Kamala engaging with these other people, perhaps learning about their perspective of Pakistan or the world, or just like branching herself out into another culture, and like how she's connecting to that as herself, like not having really connected to that culture through connecting with other young people. But it's such a small sliver in an episode that doesn't seem to care about that aspect of Kamala being here, because it's too much about, that's the other thing, is like, I would trade and have all of the like learning about the history of the Bengal stuff be with the family, right? And then any amount of her going out into Pakistan not being about engaging with the Red Dagger necessarily, but learning about Pakistan and like learning about that side of herself and her family, and like we get that almost up to the point where she gets to the train station, but the Red Dagger stuff takes all that stuff off the board. And I wish that there was more of that. I wish that was more present, but as it is, that beach scene does feel like you don't have enough else in this episode going on to support what this scene is trying to do.
That's a good point.
It's a nice idea, but it does feel like it's just kind of there to have Kamala out of the house so that Nani and Muniba can have a conversation.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, sure. I do think the Nani scene where she's like, I'm like 90 years old and I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. Like, I think that is an important scene. Again, I do agree. I wish we focused on that stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing of like, everything that has to do with the grandmother, with the mother, with grandmother and the mother together, Kamala and the grandmother together, all that stuff. I'm into that. I like that stuff. That's the best stuff for me in this episode. I think it's well written. I think it really progresses the plot and Kamala's character. And then we get away from that, and I wish we never did.
Yeah. The idea of Nani keeping toffee tins because she's never really seen Muniba not as a child, not as the little girl who loved them. I think it's really nice. Like it felt very, that's again, like that very real, that very family, this feels real writing is applied there so well. And it makes me want to spend more time there for sure.
And it's a shame because I am very excited for the next episode, which it's going to be an entire probably like flashback in the 40s scene. But that means we're not going to get any of the modern family.
I really hope not. I really hope that we're not the entire episode back there.
I'm just thinking about like how every season of the show, like Moon Knight, we had the one episode. We have every episode. So I just fear that we're probably going to get a lot of Aisha, which is great. But then the final episode will have to be taking out the villains, learning about the origin, Captain Marvel showing up probably. So
that's why I'm hoping like the show's a little sharper than that maybe that's not going to be the case, because I don't want it to take that long to get back to Yusuf, to get back to Nakia, to get back to Bruno. So I'm hoping not, because that was the thing where like when the episode ended, I'm like, boy, if this was episode 5, I'd be real scared. But this is episode 4, so I feel okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what is worrying me now, and it wasn't quite worrying me at the end when I first watched the episode, but like afterwards, especially talking to you guys, what's worrying me now is that if we do spend the entire episode in the past, in the 1940s during partition, then we have only one more episode to go back to the characters that we really loved, and we've spent 2 episodes away from them, and I think that will do the show its disservice. Now, in fairness, there is a world where we don't spend the whole episode, or we do, or the stuff, or she meets Aisha, and it it progresses Kamala in an interesting way and in a fun way and whatnot. But I think where the show is really, I think the show's biggest strength being in New Jersey with those characters, I think it's going too far away from that, and I'm worried that it's going to end very similar to how we've ended many of these other Marvel shows.
Sure. What I'm hoping is happening with episode 5 is I hope we don't spend the entire episode in the flashback. Obviously, a good chunk because this is Kamala on the night of partition where her family gets on the last train and they leave India.
And Kamala helps her grandmother get to her father, right? We all thought the same thing, that Kamala is going to be the one who gives the lights. Who gives her grandmother, this is going to be the lights or whatever.
I'm not
right. Well, hold up. Let me finish my thought first.
Yeah.
So obviously we're going to see parts of that, but also I really hope there's going to be a dual storyline where there's going to be a scene with Kamala and maybe her family during the partition, and then we're going to go back to Jersey City where we can see Bruno and Nakia talking about the fallout of what happened during the wedding, where hopefully we see all the stuff that's going on, how Kamala is impacting the mosque and all this other stuff, and Bruno can say, "Oh, I've been blinded by my feelings. We need to work on this better. We need to do this better."
You're really optimistic about how much they value spending time with those characters if Kamala's not around.
Yeah, I know.
But I was going to say the same. That I think like the path that I would like, we've never seen a Disney Plus show do this, and I'm like, wow, it'd be wild, is if it does split focus and it says like Kamala's here in but the key I think is maybe Kamran. I think Kamran might go to Bruno and Nakia and be concerned about Kamala, and we might get like them making a plan in Jersey while Kamala is in the past. That might happen.
Yes.
Disney Plus show has done that, but it'd be wild if they did.
I wasn't sure, but she was bumping into people. I wasn't sure. Has she been literally transported back in time?
I'm in this question too. I'm not sure if she's actually there.
I don't know. Like I see where you're coming from, Brandon. Like she created the thing that her grandma's talking about, but I don't know if she's literally there or not. I think it might be a vision.
She is. I think she's literally there.
She time traveled back in time?
Yes.
Those nigga bands are incredibly powerful.
That's the thing. That's what confused me about the end of this episode, and I haven't really gotten into that part yet. But like, what confused me about the end of the episode is the way it is shot, the way she appears there, the way she bumps into people, says to me, it's all the hallmarks of this was time travel. Maybe even just a really great vision, or just like whatever. But like, as this episode ended, this showed to me this was time travel, and I'm not sure how I feel about this random power coming from somewhere.
Yeah, that's why I think they shouldn't have shot it so physically, because I think that's leaving a lot of questions.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping it's a vision. I guess I should say. I hope it's a vision.
Because I really think the way they keep talking about like the Trail of Stars and whatever, I really think that's Kamala. I think Kamala did that.
I just assumed there was Aisha and like her grandmother
but they talk about how Kamala is the only one who is able to activate the bangles in this way. Her mother, her great grandmother Aisha couldn't even do that. Because there's something in Kamala's blood that activated these powers inside of her, that she was able to access these powers.
I don't. Yeah, you might be right. I don't remember if they have specific they are on that about the grandma stuff.
I do like that the Bengal says what you seek is seeking you. I think that's a good prophecy.
Yeah.
Line.
I do too.
And I do think
Najma leaves Kamran behind. That's cold as hell.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You are no son of mine.
That is like, damn. This woman has no chill.
I mean, when you're 100 years old.
Yeah. Those steel pipes are very weak, I suppose.
Yeah, seriously. Damage control needs to get better. If they damage control, if they are a government agency that deals with superpowered individuals, you would honestly think just like a weak ass little metal pipe would be more. There would be like more reinforcement.
That's their transportation. That should be the most strong.
I hope that the bit is that I would love it if the continued bit is that damage control is just incompetent.
Yeah.
I'm frankly okay with that. If that is a bit and not just like bad writing, lazy writing, like it's that damage control just kind of isn't good at their job. And if that stays the thing, A+, totally cool. That's fine. Damage control can just be bad at their job.
You had one job, Steve. One job.
Damage control is like getting to the point where they are being like comically evil. When he put this show and Spider-Man No Way Home together, I'm just like, we're gonna kill a kid after he just lost his aunt. We're gonna be super racist.
We know they're to some extent in She-Hulk, so I have to imagine that there's a possibility we're going to get them as like a bumbling organization.
It's so funny, real quick, that the Damage Control started as a Dwayne McDuffie comedy book.
Mm-hmm.
It's a comedy book. It's not a real book. It's a joke book about construction workers dealing with at the aftermath of bombs and stuff. And now we're at this point where I'm like, they've got to be evil. There's got to be some ulterior motives in the background here.
Like,
do we think that? Real quickly, do we think that Tim Roth, Abomination, is in whatever Supermax Damage Control has, or do you think he's still in the raft?
I think he's in the raft. I think if I remember,
the last we heard, he was in the raft.
Yeah, I think from Shang-Chi, I think that is still raft. It looks like the raft.
Yeah, it looks a little nicer than whatever the hell we saw in the hallway.
If they're smart, we're gonna see both prisons in She-Hulk.
Yeah. So that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I hope.
Real quick, I was gonna say, I do think, even though it leaves me confused on the ending, I think it's shot the final shot of them, like of her in 1942. Like, I don't know if they actually shot that with like a thousand extras or whatever, but that's a really good looking shot of her up, and the camera pans back, and I'm like, man, that looks real. Looks like it's real.
They've talked about like looking at photos and stuff to try to really create the environment of escaping partition and all that, and so I think that like that's a huge passion thing for them, and I'm glad that they're doing that. I hope that they nail the landing on that. I personally don't want it to be like a paradoxical loop where Kamala is doing her thing, and that's the only
because again,
like back
if we're going to MCU logic, this isn't how time travel works,
right?
So take that, Russos.
Anyway. I don't want it either. I just see the world where it is.
No, I get it, but they'd be contradicting their own Endgame movie. So I hope they don't do that.
It would be a different time travel.
No.
No. Magic?
I mean, it's magical time travel.
I mean, you can spin your bullshit at whatever way you want to make a circle fit into a square, and it'll happen. But like, one other note that I had was about the action scene. I really like that the Kamala being a bad driver just continues to be part of the thing.
Oh yeah.
She still doesn't have her license.
Still not good at it.
Worst part is she's driving a stick on the opposite side of the road, and I'm like, oh, I know how to drive stick, but still, that should not be fun.
She's doing her best.
Her powers. I debated bringing this up today, but whatever. When I'm watching any action sequence with Kamala, I keep thinking to myself, like, I do wish that her powers were more accurate to what they are in the comics. And to me, like, her powers are more interesting, are the most interesting when she is mimicking what we see in the comic. Like when she gets a big foot that stops the car, when she does the thing. Like, that's the most interesting stuff to me that I see. The platforms I'm not really too crazy about. They're whatever. So like I keep thinking to myself of like the world where they had adapted her powers to at least look the way they did in the comics.
And something that bums me out about seeing the Disney Cruise Line shit.
It's never happening.
No, is that any dream of me that by the end of this show her powers just become her powers is not the reality, because we see her using the platform shit in that Avengers Cruise Line thing.
Come on, you know how the MCU works. It takes like 3 generations of films, and then you finally get them doing the thing from the comics.
No, yeah, I was just hoping that like the power within you would be within her, and like the crystal stuff would just internalize, and she'd just be stretchy Miss Marvel. But that Cruise Line thing has to happen after this because she's established already. So these are just her powers forever now, and I'm like, as long as you just do lots of big punches, I'll be happy. Don't do so much platforming.
It just goes back to like the thing where I always felt this way, and I probably will always feel this way. As much as I like the show and as much as whatever, but like. I just kind of feel like the MCU was never one to shy away from portraying an ability realistically, like in a way that was true to its books. Like that was what the MCU built its bread and butter on, the idea of like, we're going to do this right. Yeah. And so like, it was weird to me from the jump that they were like, except for this.
And unfortunately I have to blame one of my favorite dads, Reed Richards. Like they for some reason they'll have 2 Hawkeyes, they'll have a couple Captain Americas, whatever, but we can't have 2 stretchy people. And I just think it's dumb.
I think it's also wanting to tie her to Captain Marvel more.
Yeah.
So wanting to give her power more of a cosmic feel and presentation because they're going for that hard with the movies.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm overall like I wanted to focus on like the things I just thought did not go right in this episode. But like I still like going to the environment. I like the stuff with the family.
Mm-hmm.
The nuggets we do get about the culture and how that relates to Kamala, I think are all very good. Overall, I'm a lot happier right now coming out of episode 4 than I usually am on a Disney Plus Marvel show. And that's a nice place to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. The negatives, the negatives are certainly there, but like, for me, it is being overshadowed just by how much quality everywhere else is. Like anytime we're doing family stuff, it's always good. And that's not the case with the other Marvel shows where like the main hero stuff sometimes is bad, where Kamala is generally always good, which is really nice.
It's just one of those things where like we still hit episode 4 and episode 4 was still a misstep. It was just like the quality level of 1 through 3 was so high that the misstep was like, ugh. Whereas on other shows, it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic about them getting these last 2 episodes. Really landing something special.
Yeah, I am excited whether it's a whole flashback or not. I hope it's not, but I am excited to see more Aisha, more explanation of the Bengals, because like I am curious if they are going to weave in the Kree, the Jinn, being an alien from another dimension, all this stuff, if they're going to do it well. Because right now I'm not sure they are.
Mm-hmm. Like at the end of the day, it's actually pretty cool that a Disney show decided that we're going to show Partition, much in the same way that Watchmen showed Tulsa. Mm-hmm. Like this is something that a lot of Western audiences don't know about.
Absolutely. 100%. As the folks on the Ringerverse mentioned, the American education system about partition was basically to have us watch Gandhi, and that was the end.
Yeah, pretty much.
And yes, I agree. Like 100%. I'm glad that is a focus on this. I think that's a good story element, especially with them tying in the ancestry and all that. I think that's really good. A lot of people. I just want to do this real quick because, when we come back, the show will be over. A lot of people think Captain Marvel will show up in the last episode, kind of tie up for I personally find it far more likely we see Monica. How do you guys feel?
Ooh. I could see either in the post credits. I don't think they'll be in the show. I think the post credits.
Right. Yeah. I think it's very possible, especially if Monica's stepping in as Sword, telling Damage Control to back off. I could really see that, because Monica will also be in the Marvels. I think that's just as clean a tie-in that you get. I find that far more likely that we see Monica before this show's over.
For story reasons, I 100% agree with you. For her being a Captain Marvel fan and everyone kind of expects it to be the thing, like it would, again, for story reasons, that makes more sense for a store to step in, but it for the story they're telling, like having your superhero show up to say you did a good job, I think is like cathartic and like really important for Kamala, because again, she doesn't know who Monica is, so that would just be a random person. So like the emotional connection wouldn't be there
for sure. That's me thinking that like the more. Frankly, this is one of the reasons you bring up a good point why I don't want Captain Marvel to show up, because I don't think that's a point of the season of the show for the story it's telling, is that the approval from Captain Marvel would come here. Which is why Monica makes more sense to me, because that's like when we get to the Marvels, Monica would bring Miss Marvel in on whatever's going on to Captain Marvel. And that's when she gets, you get the movie version of her meeting her hero. And I think that's a far more impactful thing. And I don't think it's relevant to the story to have Captain Marvel here, at least not at this point.
I'm into that.
The way I would like to see it is I would have Monica Rambeau post-credit scene, and she would be like, "So, you want to meet her?"
Oh yeah, that'd be cute. That is actually
that's a very like end of Shazam kind of thing, right? You hit that little like you're right. That would be really really slot.
I mean, or something along the lines is like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to Captain Marvel, and then once we get into the Marvels, that's where Kamala meets Carol Danvers for the first time, and then they do their adventure, and then we get into that, because I also agree that I don't want Brie Larson showing up in the show, mostly because I feel like that interaction, and with the movie we know is going to happen, I feel that that's much better suited for a film than it is on a TV show. I mean, the setup would be great if it was just Monica Rambeau bringing Kamala to meet Carol Danvers.
Sure.
I think that will work. I think that's perfect. I think that's great for the show. It gets people hyped for the film, and it also, at the same time, and yes, we know that Kamala is a Carol Danvers super fan, but this show is about Kamala, and I feel if we bring in Captain Marvel, Brie Larson, it'll take some of that away.
Has there ever, none of the Marvel TV shows have teased, I mean, WandaVision had the Darkhold, but like there's never been like a movie tease in any of these shows, right? Like I'm saying, like at the end of this show, like could we see the Marvels teaser trailer or something? Like, is that something that could happen? Like something like that.
Maybe. I would say no.
Yeah,
I think if the Marvels was on its original timetable where it was going to come out the end of this year, then yes. But since it got pushed back to next year, no.
Okay.
If you guys want to keep going, you can, but I gotta go.
I think we're good to wrap up.
No, yeah.
Okay, if you don't mind.
No, yeah.
No,
I think
no.
I agree with Sparkz. I am still like more positive than the other shows at this point. But I am getting a little worried, just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that's it. So that's episode 3 and 4. We will be back when the show is done with 5 and 6. And between then, I'm sure we'll have probably The Boys. I'm sure we'll try and figure out Umbrella Academy at some point. Stranger Things first, though. Stranger Things first, for sure.
Yeah.
There's also Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So plenty of Fake Nerds watch. Obi-Wan is done. Plenty of Fake Nerds watches in the works. So check them out. Check out what we've done so far. There's like this video, subscribe to this channel, check out all those shows, and you can check out other shows on this channel, such as Basement Arcade pause menu, which just put up a new episode. New episode is up right now, so you can check that out. Animation Station and Fake Nerd Book Club, as well as, of course, the Mothership Show Fake Nerd Podcast. That's Sparkz, is this coming out before or after tomorrow?
Probably.
After.
I have no idea.
Okay,
I have no idea.
If Fake Nerd Podcast has already aired, we've talked about The Princess, the new Hulu 20th Century Fox film, The Princess, and we will talk about Thor: Love and Thunder coming up. So check out that show. That goes live every Sunday. You can check us out. Just watch for our social medias. There's a little bell icon you can click that'll tell you when we go live. So Sundays, check us out.
Sunday.
That does it. You can find us on Patreon and TeePublic if you want to support us financially. We have a website, FakeNerdPodcast.com. If you like to find all the links you find us, those are down below or on that website at FakeNerdPodcast.com. Fake Nerd Podcast on all the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. FakeNerdGuys@gmail.com. I'm at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. I also write for Screen Rant and Atomic Geekdom. Atomic Geekdom has a new issue of my Revisiting the Infinity Saga series. And I edit for KaiDramaMedia.com. Ben?
You can find me finally waking up thanks to some Thai tea at BenMaggot27 on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. You can also find me writing for Old School Gamer Magazine, Fusion Gaming Magazine, and GoNintendo.com.
Ryan?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at DJ Tony Snark 616.
And Sparkz?
You can find me forgetting to mention that Miss Marvel score is really good. And also, I like the Noir girl bit where she's like, oh, a Noir girl? No, that's not it. All right. Sparkz Witty, SPARKZ Witty on Instagram and Twitter.
All right, guys. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. Until next time you see us, stay fake nerds.